You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 166. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hey friends, welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and today I have such an exciting announcement. You might have seen it in my Instagram, on social media, but I am so happy to announce that I landed a book deal with McGraw Hill. And I want to take you through what this journey has looked like because I have posted about it. I've written about it, but it's all behind the scenes. And so for many, it might seem like, oh, this just happened, but it's actually been something that's been going on since 2021. And here we are, it's February 2023, so I don't want anyone to think that this was an overnight thing that just happened because it's been a lot of work. I started out, so let's back up. I've always wanted to write a book. I've always been a reader. I treasure my signed copies of books. I have shelves and shelves of books. I'm just returning from Los Angeles where I went to the opening of Zibby's bookstore so I could meet more authors and get more signed books and all of that good stuff. I'm very passionate about books. I love reading fiction books. I love nonfiction books. And I had a really hard time when my husband bought me a Kindle and I didn't have an actual book in my hand, but I've learned to love it. So I'm now these days reading usually a nonfiction book during the day. And by during the day, I mean like after dinner time on the couch while the TV's on. And then I have a fiction or fun book that I'm reading at night before I go to bed. I read literally like an hour a day at least. My kids are like, you're always reading. So books are a huge part of my life. And I've always wanted to write one, but I honestly didn't know what I should be writing on. And I know that there's a lot in the self-publishing world, but I had this strong desire to be traditionally published. To me personally, that was an achievement that I wanted to reach. And it meant something to me because although self-publishing means you've written the book, I wanted that recognition that a traditional publisher is going to put it out into the world. And this is a total self-choice that it was something that I figured if I couldn't find a traditional publisher to publish my book, I would self-publish. It was my backup plan, per se. And so I didn't know what kind of a book to write. I had no idea in 2021. And I had the book coach, founder of Accelerator, Jenny Nash, on my show. And you can listen to that episode where she basically coached me. And she said, well, you need to first write about what you know. What are you known for? Any book after that will be at whatever you want it to be on, but you should write what you know. And what I know is podcast pitching, podcast guesting, how to repurpose your interviews to maximize your visibility. I know this. So I read Jenny's book, A Blueprint for a Book, which basically outlines the outline that you need to create to write your book. And I started down that path in late 2021, and I outlined what is it that I would put in a book? What would each chapter be? I summarized each of those things and I really laid it out, but then I didn't know where to begin. I had absolutely no idea how you get from that to an actual book that's written. So I went to Jenny and her team, and through their Author Accelerator, they have certified book coaches, and I had them match me with a book coach. I gave them my information, what the book is on, what kind of a person I am, some personality things, and they matched me with Gretel Hackinson. And Gretel came on board and she whooped my butt. It was awesome. It's like having a fitness trainer, but it's for your book. So we would meet every other week. She would give me assignments. I would finish the assignment of what parts I needed to write, and then I'd send it off to her. And then she would give me edits and feedback. And ultimately, what we created together was the proposal for my book. And this is what you need in order to go out to literary agents who will then go out to publishers. There's many layers that are involved in this. So we created this book proposal. I created it and she guided me along the way. And it included the first 2 chapters of the book. So I was already on my way of writing the actual book, but also writing the proposal that was going to go out to everyone. So I want to give you a quick overview of what goes into a book proposal. And it starts off with an overview. What is this book? Why is it necessary for the world? Why are you the one to write it? Next comes the table of contents. And that's every chapter and then a summary. So I had already written that part out. And then it comes to the manuscript specifications. How long's the book going to be? You do an audience analysis. Who is the book for? Why are they going to read it? What do they need to read it for? I also dove into how many books would an average person need to buy in order to gain the contents that are in my book, because that really sets it apart. Then you do a competitive title analysis where you research every book that's already been published. And if it's on your topic, if it relates to your topic, who published it, what was the outcome, and a little synopsis of what the book is about. You go into your author bio and headshots. So you have to have some professional photos already taken. Luckily, I did. And then there's a marketing plan. How are you going to market the book? Are you going to write articles? If you're going to write articles, who are you going to pitch those articles to? Who do you know that can write blurbs for you about the book? How are you going to promote it? Are you going to do podcasts? Are you going to pitch yourself, to the media? What does all of that look like? Because ultimately, you have to market your book. There are some publicists with some traditional publishers, but McGraw Hill, for instance, is not going to provide me with a publisher or a publicist. I'm going to do that back end work. They will do some marketing for me, but I am the publicist for my book. And then comes the sample chapters. So I provided 2 chapters, and this looks different depending on if you're doing a fiction or a nonfiction book. And mine is nonfiction, so it's the 2 sample chapters that went in. And this document ended up being 70 pages long. It took us months to get to, but at the same time, Gretel said that it was less months than her normal clients usually take. So I work hard. I made sure that I met all of my deadlines in getting this done because honestly, I didn't want to keep spending money on a coach if I wasn't going to do the work. So we did this together. The proposal was completed. We edited it rounds and rounds. And then there comes a part where you are making a list of what agents do you want to query. And the query is basically where you're reaching out to them and saying, I have this book and I want you to represent me and to pitch it to publishers. And here's why. And you're sending them, it's ultimately like a cold sales email on why they should work with you. And I made a list based on agents that I knew of, agents that represented authors that I knew, books that I really loved, books that might relate to mine. I made a list of all of those. And what I also did in this list is not just include their names, who they work for, their contact info, but I would go stalk them as I stalk everyone. And I actually had one agent come back and say that she was amazed that I had found certain facts about her that she didn't even know were out in the world. But that's what caught her eye. Some authors query hundreds of agents. I was very lucky that I queried less than 10 and I landed my agent. And what happens is the agent will read your query letter. They will then say yes or no to reading your proposal. When you get to that next step of them reading your proposal, you then sit and wait and hope that they want to represent you and the book. And that's really the big deal, because if they say they want to represent you, then that means that they feel they can sell the book. They don't take on clients that they think won't sell. Because what's the point? They work basically on kind of a commission. They get a percentage of whatever the deal is that the author signs. So that call for me came from Jacklyn Flynn, Jackie, with Joelle Delbourgo Associates. And I will never forget that call with Jackie. We talked for well over an hour, and she said she wanted to represent me. And I knew that meant that this book was really going to come to life. And so we signed together. There was a contract. I posted about that. And then it was time for me to edit some more with the proposal. She went through it, did some edits herself. It went back and forth. And then she started pitching me while my job was to finish writing the book. So I had been writing throughout the time of the query that was being sent out to agents. And then I continued writing. I finished the book January 1st of 2023 completely. That's edited my edits, got to my word count of over 56,000 words. And in the background, Jackie was reaching out to publishers. And she updated me along the way. Some thought that the topic was too narrow. There was, some rejection, but luckily as someone who's worked in sales and PR, rejection is like an everyday type of thing. So it's not bad because as long as they don't all say no, all it takes is that one yes. So on January 19th, I got an email from Jackie saying, do I have time to sit down and have a call with an editor from McGraw Hill? Yes, absolutely. That is not a problem. And we jumped on a call with Michelle with one L and discussed the book. What is it that, I want to get out of it? What do I think it's going to bring to the world? And luckily for me, Michelle was familiar with podcast pitching, with what that looks like, with how hard it is. And she knew from her freelance days that this is something that's needed in the world, that people can't all afford to hire someone to do this work, that people need to get their stories out there, and that this is the perfect vessel to do it. So she believed in the book right away, and we connected. And from there, then Michelle has to create a proposal to submit to her acquisitions team. And that was going to be done on a Friday because they were meeting the following Wednesday. So pins and needles, it's more waiting. Of course, the book is done, so there's not much I can do but sit and wait and go along my business like everyday life. And Wednesday came and went, and I kept refreshing my email like a crazy person. Thursday came, I reached out to Jackie and I was like, what is going on? She said, they don't have an answer yet. Some people missed the meeting, so we're waiting on more feedback. Then Friday, February 3rd, I was all by myself because Ted was traveling, the kids are at school, and it was probably like 11 in the morning. I'd just gotten around to making myself a breakfast bagel. I actually remember what I was eating, and my phone was next to me and rang, and it was Jackie. Now, I know that when the phone rings, that's a big deal. Otherwise, it can just go into an email. And she called to tell me that we got an offer from McGraw Hill. I can't tell you what my reaction was. I think I was speechless. I was ready to cry. And I immediately hung up with her and I called Ted because he was boarding a plane. And then I walked literally in circles in my living room to my kitchen and around for about an hour. I called my closest friends. I called my family to let them know. And then I sent a text message to my happy hour crew and just said, champagne tonight, our house. I'll tell you why when you get here. So nobody knew. It was a celebration. It was huge. The offer was great. It was more than what we had hoped for. And then it comes down to the contract and what's included, what royalties there are, the advance, what rights does McGraw Hill want versus, what I'm willing to give up. And so we took that over the weekend, and then Jackie had some of edits that she wanted to, try to negotiate. And then I had some of my own, such as the voice over for the audiobook. That was a big one for me because I want to be the voice. I want to be the voice of my book. And the following Wednesday, I was on a field trip with my son and his class, and I had to manage these 4 little boys, and the phone rang again, and I asked them to watch a video while I took the call because we negotiated an even better deal. And then on this past Friday, February 17th, it went out to the world to announce that I got the book deal. So I've been sitting on this for 2 weeks, so excited to let everybody know. And now there's more work to come. Now is when it's going to get crazy with editing the book again with the McGraw Hill editor, Michelle, creating the marketing plan, doing the book cover, the jacket, going down that whole the path of what it takes to go into publishing a book. It is slated to come out in Q1 of 2024, and McGraw Hill is very special and different than some of the other traditional publishers out there because they're able to get these things done very quickly. They have about a 6-month turnaround to publishing, which is really unheard of. It's usually like a year plus right now, especially with the pandemic and the shortages on paper and all of that other amazing stuff. But this is where we are now, and the fun is just beginning. I am planning out my marketing plan and what my book launch will look like, and I'm attending a book launch in New York next month and, looking at what others are doing and what I can incorporate into my launch so that this book reaches as many people in the world as possible. It is on podcast pitching. It's going to cover how you create your topics, how you create your media kit, how you approach hosts and what your emails should look like and what your follow-up looks like. And it takes you down the path of the entire journey to pitching yourself. But then we dive into what being a good guest looks like. We talk about what are some of the mindset things you need to work on? How do you prepare to be your best self and show up the way that you should? But then how do you take that podcast interview and really elevate your visibility? How is it that you can repurpose the content? It is literally everything and then some in this book that covers everything. You would need, I counted, at least 7 books to cover what I'm covering. So instead of buying 7 books, you can just buy mine and gain all of the knowledge and the tips and the tools. I relate it to really a dinner party or a happy hour or your Netflix and chill moments where you're at home or you're being invited to someone else's home because a podcast is someone's home. And so there's relational messages in there of how you compare the two and what you should be looking for and what you should be doing so that you become that person that is not just the expert in your field, but people want to have to come back on their show. It's what is going to attract people to buy from you without you actually selling something on an interview. So I am so elated to share this news with you finally. I've had this episode inside of me just bursting to come out and waiting until that moment that I could share it with all of you because it's been a goal. It's been a dream of mine that I've been able to see come to fruition. And for my kids, they want to see it in the library. I let them know that not only will I get to be in a library, but I can be in the Library of Congress listed there as well. And so they're ready to go to DC and see that. Maybe that's a trip for next year when that is all out as well. So I thank you for always listening. I look forward to sharing more about this book journey. And if you have any questions at all about what the process looks like, I'm more than happy to share more with you, to share the Author Accelerator and how their book coaches work, to share my book coach because she's amazing, and to just cheer you on your journey as well, because this is something that you can do. I think that a lot of people think you have to have these huge followings. You have to be known already in order to land something like a book deal. And I do have thousands of followers, but it's not tens of thousands. It's not millions of downloads. It's the right people, and it's an engaged audience, and it's knowing what I know in my field and being the expert in that field. That's what brought me to this point in getting the book deal. So I want to give you that for encouragement, that if this is something that you want to do and you have it in you, that you can do it too. Absolutely. It's just putting in the work and being patient, which we know I'm not always good at. but it takes time. But if you believe in it, you can get it done too.